Okay, it's 5:31, and hi, my name is Bobby Haber from a very windy and very gray New York City. I am here with my partner, Joanne Abbott Green. We are with Mondo.NYC, and we have been incredibly honored to partner with the Guild of Supervisors now for our fourth weekly show. This is the end of this series, but we look forward to doing this again in the summertime, and of course, we look forward to having everybody join us, we hope, in New York City in the middle of October. So we've got an incredible panel today, as we've had for the past 4 weeks. It is my sincere pleasure to introduce you to Joel C. High. Joel is a music supervisor, and he has done just a little bit. He's done 150 films, plus hours and hours of TV, plus games. He is the former head of music for Trimark Pictures and Lionsgate Film and TV, and also Tyler Perry's music supervisor. Joel is currently president of the Guild of Music Supervisors. So please give him a nice warm hand. Joel C. High, take it away.
Yay. Thank you, Bobby. Thank you so much. Yeah, so this has been an honor. It's been very kind of transformative to start doing these kinds of things. I thank you guys over at Mondo and our own John Mchugh for making this happen, jumping in with both feet and seeing where there was need. And so the guild stepped up and said, let's be a participant and see where this goes. And we've been making it up as we go. And I think we've been doing this for now a month, 4 of these panels now. And I think they are getting better and better. And I think that shows a lot of potential for growth. So I really thank you guys for doing this series. And I'm kind of sad to see this series end. Good news is that it's given us a real vehicle and an impetus to kind of continue doing stuff in this vein and really continue the outreach. So we're going to continue doing some more of these things, and I urge you to volunteer. We're looking for ideas and for people to help implement them, and it doesn't have to be big, broad-ranging kind of things. These are obviously big tent kind of ideas that we've been doing on these panels and have been logging in between like 600 to 800 people online, plus the YouTube channels of both Mondo and the Guild. But there's reason to do these on smaller bases, much more intimate kind of a thing. We're going to actually be doing a members only, our first virtual sync drinks tomorrow for all of our members. So look for that email and register and be there. We're going to have performances. It's going to be a round robin kind of a thing from Mondo Cosmo, Mount Joy, and Blue Stones are going to be coming in and playing some songs and talking about it, and you can interact with them. And somebody just shared a screen, it looks like.
Yeah. Dom.
But anyway, so that's going to be tomorrow. There's going to be a lot more opportunities to participate and to listen to stuff and share with each other. And tomorrow is going to be very interactive like this, with people being able to talk and seeing each other and have a drink with each other. In fact, we're going to be doing a trivia thing where you can answer and win gift certificates to whatever your local drinkery is, so you can support some of your neighborhood places that are applying food and booze to all of us supervisors caught in the house. So keep your eyes for that. And now I'm going to introduce John Mchugh, who's been my friend for years and years, longer than I can count, was one of the Guild's founding members and is an officer, and one of the reasons that these panels even started. And also, he was instrumental in one of our new movements at the Guild, where we expanded to a committee that represents the East Coast. We've been very much a West Coast kind of centric kind of organization. And we heard a lot of rumbling about people from the East Coast saying, why aren't you paying attention to us more? And they, as they do, just kept going. We were like, oh my God, we have to play catch up, and let's bring you into the fold. And so we've expanded to having people that represent the East Coast with a New York-centric kind of an idea with a lot of ad people and stuff. So I wanted to thank Don for being instrumental with that, as well as with Ed, who's on the board over here, Ed Gerard. And with that, I'd like to hand it off to music supervisor, producer, director, man of many talents, John Mchugh.
Thanks, Joel. Yeah, it's been really fun, in this kind of tortured month we've all been living in. As Joel said, this has really been a nice way to get in touch with people and connect and give information to people. It all started with my students at American University just wanting more content and being bored to death at home. So we gave them access to our panels after we created a panel for them. And now it's, 600 people show up every time we do one. So we want to thank you guys all for doing that. Again, we did 4 panels this month. We'll be part of a panel next week, which I'll talk about at the end, which is done with AIMP, Association of Music Publishers, which is open to the public. The happy hour Joel was talking about, the first one is members only for this one, because the artists wanted to do it that way, and they wanted to do it that way. So we'll be looking to do more of those for the public with our members, and be growing from there. But as Joel was talking about New York, me being from there, and obviously this time what's going on there has been horrific. And so obviously you've seen a lot of advertising spots themed towards what's going on there, to first responders and to healthcare workers. And it's really a pleasure that the New York panel put this together, and gave us the insight to bring in some supervisors who are working on some great work. So Ed Gerard, as Joel was saying, is the New York board member. Patricia Joseph is one of our committee members in New York. So we'll kick it over to her and Ed, and they can just keep it rolling.
Great. Well, thank you, John. First of all, I hope everybody's safe and sound. And, it is a tough time, especially here in New York. One of the reasons this was all started was to get people in a new way interactive with our organization. Like I mentioned, I'm a board member. I'm the only one from New York. And one of the things I realized once I started doing this as a board member was there are different needs for guild member, not so much needs, but asks and questions from guild members in New York, because we are somewhat different, where it's made up not only, but primarily of advertising people. So we formed a committee. I want to give a little quick shout out to the committee members. It's myself, Patricia Joseph is on this, Ricky Askin, Rebecca Grierson, Jonathan Heck, and Jonathan Zelban, all tremendous people that are very, have great ideas and very supportive of our guild. So we get together on a monthly basis, and we have just got recognized by the esteemed people from the West Coast to be our own separate committee that we will present to the board and to other guild members some of the different viewpoints, especially concerning people from our side of the world here in New York. So I was completely, it was great that these guys handed off and allowed us to curate this panel. I think it's going to be a fantastic panel. I'm interested. I don't do that much ad work myself. I'm more in the film world, but I'm interested to listen in and see what some of these great people that we brought together have to talk about. So with that, I'm going to pass off to Patricia, who was instrumental in putting a lot of this together. Yeah. We hope you guys enjoy it and ask questions later on. Patricia?
Thanks, Ed. It's nice to be part of the Guild. It's great to be part of the New York Guild, where we can start to really create this community that exists here that's predominantly ad-centric, because most of the film TV work is based in Los Angeles. There's a few here, really, really meaningful supervisors here, but the crux of it is the ad community, and we're just trying to create a more bonded community here. So this being one of the great opportunities for us to sort of get together and hear some of the work that gets done in the ad sector. I think we have a really nice lineup of speakers, and really happy to have Todd Porter, who I've known for a while, who is an ad music supervisor, and he will newly appointed board member of the Guild as well. He's going to be moderating this panel. The panel is obviously how music supervisors in the ad community are experiencing COVID and how that's affecting the work and the music content. But tell a little bit about Todd. Todd's been working in advertising for over 20 years. He's partnered with clients to create music content, and he's placed music in many coveted Super Bowl campaigns, as well as booking artists for brand-related events. And his works resulted in raising the profile and recognition for brands among consumers, as well as a huge uptick in sales for these artists. So I guess, Todd, you can take it away from here.
Let's see here. Hey, how's everybody doing? Of course, as soon as this started, someone rang my doorbell and my dog went insane. So I'm dealing with that. And this is the very real reality of working during this time, I think. Hope you enjoy this. I also got my hair cut by a 7-year-old this morning. So Thank you so much. And I do have to give a shout out to to my friends in New York. Certainly as a West Coast ad person and a music supervisor, I was greatly influenced by the work of the venerated supervisors and agencies and their music departments. And so being a part of this is a great honor. And I want to thank Ed and Patricia and all the New York crew and all the Guild members who put this together today, and certainly Jonathan as well. So, the panel today is about how this time is affecting what we do as music supervisors, and specifically what's happening in branded content, in advertising, marketing, and how brands are communicating to the world during this. Some of the topics we're going to touch on today, and I'll let the speakers talk through this, but are the shift in production methods, because traditional commercial and marketing production has been completely upended. We've gone from live action shoots and a lot of on-camera talent to a much more improvised web camera graphics kind of thing. We're going to look at the brand's responses in their messages during this time. We're also going to examine the search for tone, because tone is very important. This is a very serious moment, a crisis, especially in New York and globally. And how do you find the right way to handle this? And there's been a bit of cynicism around that. We'll talk about that. Also, the stages of this pandemic. I think several weeks ago was a much different thing than it is now. And several weeks from now, it will be, again, a much different landscape. We might even touch upon the thoughts of what reopening the country and trying to normalize things, how that might affect things. So I do want to keep things moving. My panelists, the people that are going to talk today, are the most important part of this. And at that, I'm going to read some bios, and we'll get them into the mix and have them speak today. They're also going to share work. We're really lucky in that everyone here has a current piece to share. So first up, we've got Carl Westman. Carl's been putting music to moving picture for nearly 40 years. He's worked on all sides of the process as an audio engineer, producer, composer, and for the last 20 years, the music director at Ogilvy, New York, a very established and venerable agency. Next up, we've got Jessica Shaw. Jessica's been leading the commercial licensing team at Sony Music as VP for music and brands in advertising since 2014. Prior to that, she spent her career in licensing on the publishing side at UMPG, Warner Chappell, and Boozy Hawks. Jessica's someone I deal with almost daily. Next up, we've got Ben Dornfeld. Ben is an advertising music producer overseeing all aspects of music production and supervision at Anomaly, truly great New York agency. Prior to that, he produced and supervised music at Gray, New York on campaigns for Volvo, Pantene, Kettle One, and more, including Cannes-winning work for both Volvo and Pantene. He started his career doing concert touring at ICM for artists including Kendrick Lamar, Future, and Boyz II Men, among others. And finally, we've got Kays Taylor. Kays works for Score, another great shop, a music provider. They're a full service music house, in addition to ad supervision and clearance for brands such as Arrow, Greyhound, Gymboree, Penn Medicine, and Keurig and Dr. Pepper. She's also supervised TV series such as Free Meek, which is on Amazon, The Dress Up Gang, which is on TBS, Best Shot on YouTube Premium, and Nathan For You, a show I really love, on Comedy Central, as well as independent documentaries like The Price of Free and The Lost Arcade. So at this point, I was gonna just throw it over to our first guest, Carl Westman. He's got a clip to share and a few things to say. I think in the lead up to this, we had some really great conversations, and Carl had some very interesting thoughts on tonality in what's going on. And Carl, you take it away.
Thanks, Todd. Where do we start? The spot that I'm going to show aired almost a month ago. That's what I realized this morning. So it really is telling as to how timing and tone go hand in hand during this crisis. So as you may know, the IBM is one of the 3 sponsors of the Masters golf tournament every year. And that was canceled. And we had shot 7 commercials and they were finished. And we had to move very quickly with a COVID response spot. We couldn't shoot live. We had to really concentrate on a tone that was both deliberate and confident, but also be cognizant of the fragility of the situation, because it was a month ago. It might have been, I think, the first week of April the spot aired. So what I'm about to show you happened in less than 7 days. We used user-generated content. Some of it was shot by agency folks. We had some run and gun solo cinematographers, you can call that. In Tokyo and London, they picked up some images that were current. The track we picked was September Song by Agnes Obel. I can't take credit for picking that. That was my executive creative director who mentioned this piece of music. Just goes to show you that good ideas come from anywhere. What we had to do in a very short amount of time is that was to edit this longer piece into a 30-second piece of music that created an arc for the narrative. And if anybody's edited a very languid piano piece with a sustain pedal playing through the whole thing, it's very tricky. But I think the result sonically is splendid. It worked great. There's no voiceover on this spot. We intentionally did that because we wanted the audience to read the copy in their own voice. It makes it more intimate. So we use titles and sound design, which I'm also, that's my job as well, is supervising and hiring sound designers. The client was, was very, as you would imagine, concerned about the tone of this. It couldn't be too somber, but it had to be thoughtful. It had to be confident. And this piece of music does have pace to it, and it is uplifting, but at the same time, it walks that fine line between, oftentimes music that is beautiful has an element of bittersweet. And I believe this track does the fine job of creating the right tone for the images and what was going on at that time, which 4 months ago, people were far more, I think, less certain about things. It seems like there's momentum, there's light at the end of the tunnel. And as Todd mentioned, as we move forward, I know in the work that we're actually releasing tomorrow, there's 3 30-second spots and a 2-minute going out tomorrow. The music has changed already. So without any further ado, let's hit play. So I'll continue on just for a minute, Todd, just to wrap up a thought or two. IBM is in, is in a position to offer up a message that is pertinent to what they actually offer up on a daily basis. So in other words, IBM offers solutions to the problems that we have ongoing through the COVID crisis. So although this message is an encouraging one, IBM was able to show how they were helping the general public in a way that felt unselly and was, I think, a strong message for them as a brand, and also, a sympathetic one for the situation we're in.
That's great. That's great. And we'll definitely come back. Thank you so much, Carl. We'll come back and maybe at the end of this talk about the tone and the sort of a little bit of cynicism that's come across from all this work that's being done.
Sure.
But I do want to keep us going. And Jessica Shaw is up next from Sony Music. And Jessica will have a different point of view because she's the person that is getting the licensing requests and the music briefs and trying to articulate those into music that can be licensed. So Jessica, I'll let you take over.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. It's nice to see all your faces and see some familiar faces in their little squares, and I hope everyone's doing well. Yeah, so obviously I come at this from the opposite side of the table as a rights holder, and our experience through this unusual time has been, on the receiving end of what our friends at the agencies are dealing with, which has really been fascinating to experience. When things first shut down, we were expecting business to really slow down and work to really slow down, and it did for a few days while I think brands were trying to figure out what they wanted to do, and it only took a couple days to see that these brands were realizing, we have to say something. We have to put out some sort of message, and we have to do it fast. So on our side, on the label side, that meant we started receiving a lot of inquiries, a lot of briefs, a lot of search requests. Everything was an urgent turnaround. Every ballpark check and every clearance request became very urgent. And the tone of the briefs for the first 2 weeks, especially, 99% of the briefs we got, inspirational, hopeful, uplifting, often sometimes instrumental, sometimes words, messages about coming together and, heroes and helping each other. So, the obvious stuff, and that's what we were seeing. We ended up putting together, I'm seeing these chats, uplifting, so hot right now. Very true. Isn't it always, though? So, we as a team at Sony came together and just started compiling all of our best songs that have these right messages and have that feeling and get that message across as a pool that's kind of was our strategy to kind of put our heads together, and we've been churning. So I have one sample spot to show, and this is something that came to us a couple weeks ago through our friends at Goodyear Music Supervision. Andrew Kahn and Eric Such reached out to us with a very short turnaround. They were working on a spot for for their client Zillow, who were interested in licensing "Shelter from the Storm" by Bob Dylan, an iconic song with a message that's just perfect for this time. And we had to clear it, I think, within a day. I forget the exact, it was either same day or the next day, thankfully. And Ryan Millardo on my team, I'll shout out, was the one running point on that. But we called up our buddy, Jeff Rosen, who I was asked to mention is a good friend of mine. I'm sure a lot of people on this call, was wonderful. We got it cleared super quickly, and yeah, let's have a look.
So great.
Thanks.
Love that.
I saw Andrew just signed on. Hi, Andrew. Well done. So yeah, I mean, that was an awesome use. We were so excited about it. And I think it's an interesting example too of, the kind of brands that are advertising now and what messages they're sending out. Obviously the emphasis on home is a big thing right now, and Zillow and those kind of real estate brands, it's a good time for them to put out some messaging. Yeah, I think that's kind of it. I'll pass the torch, and I'm sure we'll come back to other.
I had one quick question for you, Jessica. I mean, we talked about this briefly on another conversation, but are things that clearance, what the scenario you depicted was a very fast turnaround for a very famous song, very famous artist. How do you feel things are going, the pace of music brief to license to on air? Is it accelerated or similar?
Yeah, I will say from our perspective, since we're seeing a high volume on our side, because we're kind of across almost all, any work that's out there that's looking for music. I'd say it's a lot of hurry up and wait. That's kind of been our experience the last couple of weeks. Everything is urgent, urgent, urgent. Searches are urgent, clearances are urgent. And then a lot of the time, these brands are just kind of, I think everyone's sort of tripping over their feet trying to figure out what message are we putting out and how and when. So some things like that, the Zillow spot, truly, I think we cleared it and it was confirmed all within 24 hours. But a lot of what we're working on now, we're doing a very quick turnaround, and then things are kind of being delayed. So it's been a challenge to kind of respond to everything, but we're doing everything we can to turn things around quickly. One good thing about the current state of the world is most people are home and by their phones and checking email.
Yeah.
So so we're doing everything we can to turn things around quickly, but it's moving fast.
Yeah, I'd have to agree. I was surprised at how quickly creative and things that might take a little longer have been getting improved from my side. So moving on, we got Ben Dornfeld from Anomaly, who's got some great work to share with us. And Anomaly's an amazing agency. Their work in the music world is great. I'm really a big fan. So go for it, Ben.
Thanks, Todd. And thank you to Patricia and John, the rest of the Guild. I really appreciate everything, having me here today. And thanks to everyone who's joined. I know it's, I think we're living in a time right now where everyone is on Zooms constantly, or I feel like I'm on Zooms and Hangouts all the time. So I really appreciate everyone taking the time to come and join us today. I chose a spot to share by a brand that I work with called Don Julio. It's a tequila brand, and we did a social driven campaign for them. And the reason, there's actually a few reasons why I chose to show it, but one of them is that I think it encompasses all facets of what I do as a director of music at an advertising agency. And then second to that, it encompasses everything I do in the shift that is now COVID-19. So it's using new ways to produce content. I think Todd said this at the beginning of the conversation, that obviously we're not doing large scale production shoots anymore. We're not hiring famous directors, DPs. We can't go to edits, we can't go to mixes. But I think one amazing point that I want to make about everything is I really believe that music has truly held strong throughout all of this. I was asked very early on, how are we going to do music? And I said, well, if I'm doing supervision, I can search for music just like I did before. If I'm clearing it, I can call people, I can email. And if we're doing original music production, we can hire composers and work with them. Obviously, we can't go and work with them in a studio, but we can find alternative means to doing so. And so this Don Julio spot encompasses all of that. We worked really closely with our client, Diageo, to do talent casting. I hired Human, which is a music post-production company here in New York, who I've worked with a lot, to execute a re-recording of the classic song Cielito Lindo, which is a famous Mexican tune. And the creative directors came up with that, and it's really all centered around this piece of music. And we scouted bartenders to actually record themselves singing the song, sending it to us, and we coordinated with Human how to stitch it all together. And I think the end result is, I'm still amazed by it. We did it all within a span of a couple weeks, and the clearance process took an hour once I determined that the song wasn't actually in the public domain. So not only did it include clearance, original music production, all angles of what I do, but also the musicology aspect as well. So yeah, without further ado, why don't you show the spot?
Cielito lindo, vienen bajando. Un par de ojitos negros, cielito lindo, de contrabando. Ay, 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 ay. Canta y no llores, porque cantando se alegra. Cielito lindo, los corazones.
Awesome.
Yeah, and so I mean, and then the third reason I want to show is just I love the spot. I think it turned out really nicely, and we did the whole thing within like literally a couple of weeks. It was, you know, not always easy, and to Jess's point, I think everything is happening now seemingly in hyper speeds. But you know, being at a creative agency like Anomaly, we're pretty nimble. We've executed campaigns. I had another one that was deciding whether or not to show from Bullet that we did just all ourselves. We shot it all ourselves. And I think that that's just the turn of events now. We're on different, you know, media platforms between Instagram, TikTok, et cetera. And, you know, it's a changing landscape, but it's interesting to kind of go with the flow.
Yeah. I have to say that of all the spots we're showing today, that one I think could absolutely live as a standalone. I mean, it could be great at any time. User generated content on social media. It's you know, it isn't specifically a pandemic piece. It's just kind of a celebration. It's really fun. So it's awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
Congratulations. So next up, we've got Case Taylor, and I did want to pause for a second and just let everybody know, because I know people were joining late. And wanted to backtrack for a second and let everybody know who the panelists have been so far today. Our first speaker was Carl Westman from Ogilvy, New York, ad agency supervisor. We also had Jessica Shaw speak from Sony Music. Ben Dorenfeld just spoke from Anomaly. And now Case Taylor is here from Score, an amazing resource for people like myself who consistently do great work. So Case, you take it away.
Awesome. Hi, guys. So as Todd mentioned, I do music supervision as well, but I'll be kind of talking today more from Jessica's perspective on the licensor side. We're a music house and we've done a ton of like COVID response stuff. We're getting searches, like Jessica said, every single day, like quick turnaround. Like we've actually been incredibly busy, which is kind of amazing. Yeah. Yeah, in general, we've been seeing a lot of exactly what Jessica said, the inspirational, uplifting, but writing that line between like too uplifting and still being sensitive to the situation. We're getting that brief pretty much constantly. And now actually just recently, I'm starting to see a little bit of a shift in that, where it seems like people are now kind of wanting to start getting away from that a little bit. But I'm going to show one of our Taco Bell spots today, actually, which is not like that at all. Because Taco Bell is kind of one of our biggest clients. We work with them like direct to brand as well as through their agency Deutsch. here in Los Angeles. And we do a ton of work with them pretty much constantly, and they have a pretty like solid brand identity when it comes to music. Definitely like modern, young, upbeat, fun, like either in the like hip hop electronic sphere or like kind of the attitude rock swagger area. So they wanted to do this. We started this campaign over a month ago now, where they started giving away free Doritos Locos Tacos during the quarantine. And this one was kind of tricky because normally when they send us a brief, it's pretty much like, it's a Taco Bell gig, you guys know what to do, send us some fresh stuff and we know exactly what to do. But in this case, you know, they did want to be sensitive to everything going on. And for Taco Bell, that kind of brand, it kind of means something else. So with this one, they kind of wanted more of like a feel good, positive like vibe, but still kind of like with that Taco Bell like essence, without getting sentimental or anything like that. So it went quite a bit around trying to nail that. And we kind of came back to a song from the very first round of a search that we did for them. And this spot has been renewed weekly, kind of as the quarantine keeps getting extended, they keep renewing the spot and kind of like doing a refresh of it somehow. And we've kind of tried to find different music for it, but this original track from the first week of the giveaway just works so well that we keep just renewing it for the campaign. So yeah, so I guess I'll show the spot.
Every day feels a little too familiar lately. So we've decided to spice things up by giving away a new Flamin' Hot Doritos Locos Tacos for free. Tuesday, April 21st. Taco Bell, let our drive-thru help you get through.
That's it. Pretty simple. They kind of keep refreshing it. Like the first week they said, like, we wish we could give you a hug right now, but we can't. So instead we'll give you a free taco. But it works and it just keeps going. I think we're doing another one this week. And actually the track is called Keep On Keeping On, which I'm kind of convinced that just the title kind of like got into their heads and like it just works for right now. So yeah, kind of a different vibe than the others, but
It's a good note for all you composers out there to name your tracks well.
yeah, actually I'm a big fan of doing stuff like that. I think it works.
Who was the artist for that one?
Sorry?
Who was the artist on that one?
It's a duo called AGM3 that we rep.
So that was your pitch for them.
That was our pitch, yeah. That was our pitch to Deutsch, the agency.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good spot for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, everybody's starving now, so that's great. So I had a piece to share that I was hoping to fit in if we have enough time.
And share away.
Then we're gonna get into questions and maybe a little more discussion, and we're doing well on time. So if you guys want to roll my piece, it'd be great.
Night takes a sunny day, woke up the people race. I know everyone is missing someone, but it stopped me. I saw someone like you.
Hey.
Hey. So
What's up, everybody?
like you.
I like that one.
That one's.
Is he there yet?
Okay, everyone. I'm gonna text her now.
So that was a spot that was released, last week for Facebook, part of their Messenger offering called Rooms, and it's a video chat thing, and it was a tremendous experiment in tone and how to handle this, because obviously it's a birthday party, it's a celebration. It's also during this time when that is the way we're doing things. Certainly, I recently had a 8-year-old birthday party with my kids in the same format, and it's heartwarming, it's heartbreaking, and I think they picked an amazing song for that, and I was very lucky to to have
What was that song?
found this piece. It's actually it's a song sung by June Coco, who's a artist I believe from Germany, but it's a cover of an Alex the Astronaut tune, and I think it worked out really well. We're very happy, and the difference in between, you know, with a cut like that, with different types of music and different tone, we bring it to completely different levels. But I think that really, at least for me, kind of nailed it. I've seen it many times. I still messed up. So
one of the interesting things
Yeah.
for me is that Zoom has become like this revolution where you didn't even hear of this platform. Everybody was Skyping, and then all of a sudden Zoom shows up and blasts everybody out of the water. And then there's Facebook, which is one of the biggest companies on earth, that now has to catch up and compete in a marketplace. So by, you know, it's kind of interesting that now they're getting to it, but you know, why weren't they there earlier? Because they had the market, they have everybody on lock. So it's interesting that they have to come now with a good campaign to put their product back out there, you know?
yeah, well, I can't speak to product attributes, but I will say that having used this, it's amazing. It really works well, and I'm super happy because it can be very quick in terms of going to a place where your friends are and being able to connect fast. So that's my product thing, but it is.
Before we go to questions, can we do? I love the. There was another spot that Ben brought that I saw, Bullet Bourbon. If we could, if Ben, you're okay with playing that spot?
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Do we have that ready to go?
Yeah, you want to run that Bullet Bourbon spot?
Right.
Hey, another work from home day in the books. Time for a who's with me? Charlie, Cocktail, Bobby, Mark, Zoe, Gabby, Mimi, Mike, come on, Tom with an H, Rodrigo, Marcello, Big Pete. Professor Smith, would you care to join me for a cocktail in the lounge? Snaggles, Bastion, Henry, Reggie, you look thirsty. I'll take that wink as a yes. Maurice, have you met Kendall? Kendall, have you met Maurice? Dottie, Leonard, Ronnie, want to tickle the ivories? Shanzer, Esther, Uncle Cliff, look at you. Jeannie, Doc, Eleanor, back from Paris, I see. Toasty Steve. Miss Livingston, care to set the mood? Well, I believe we're in good company. Let's drink to that.
Wonderful.
Love it.
Wonderful.
And how that one?
Thanks, John. Yeah. This is another one that we did. I don't know. I just like this one. I like the lighthearted stuff. It takes me away from, you know, everything else that is just totally a bummer right now. And so this one, you know, we did it in just a few days. It was mostly over a weekend. We sourced all of that footage ourselves. You know, obviously it's inanimate objects that are pretending to be your drinking buddies now. And so I think the message is great. The end, that's the creative director and his wife in the video. And so yeah, it was just like kind of a fun piece of work where we kind of all just got down and dirty as an agency, like just working on it and putting it together. The music is a library piece that I found. We went through a few different options to edit in. The budget was, you know, really tiny, but I think it's a total success. And I think it does a great job at being a COVID response piece that breaks the mold.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really strong work. Great creative on that.
Yep.
That's awesome. So, you know, now I know we've got a few minutes here before we get into questions, I believe. And I know we've been getting some great ones during this, and we're kind of building a bank of them. I did want to kind of come back and maybe talk about, again, about tone, because one of the things that we were all watching was these sort of every commercial is the same collections. And we were discussing it because it is true. There are similar messages between all these brands because everybody's facing the same situation. I know that, again, that Carl, specifically, we were talking about the piano stuff and he had some interesting thoughts about that. And Carl, do you want to maybe bring a little bit of that discussion from the other day into this larger?
Yeah, certainly. You know, I think it has a lot to do with timing. And also it has a lot to do with the brand and the message. But at the very beginning of the circumstances we're in, we really, clients had to tread very lightly on where they took us emotionally, where they took their audiences emotionally. And although a solo piano at times starts to feel cliche, and certainly if it's overused, and with certain copy really starts to feel insincere, and it has to be really tempered with the right verbiage and the right message. But I think it's important to realize that if music tells us how to feel, that there are certain cliches that do work. And as music supervisors, we know if we need to elicit a certain feeling, that to avoid those particular touch points, a solo piano is neutral, or as an orchestration. It has the whole orchestra, so to speak, under your fingertips. It also, in my particular case, that IBM spot, I thought that particular piece had motion, and it had a certain amount of beauty to it. So it didn't pull you down into a saccharine, cloying kind of really over solemn place. So it's timing. It's definitely timing. We're going to start to see things move away from that particular time. As I said, that was a month ago. Also, we have to consider the brand image and what their normal messaging is. The product has a lot to do with it. Clearly, IBM, Big Blue, this wonderful, institution of American business and technology, is not in the same. Its branding is not the same as a liquor, or a beer, or even a realtor. Its core values and how they've been messaging for a very long time has been through language, has been through words. We don't sing for our supper, very often. In IBM land, we have a lot to talk about. We're talking about cloud, AI, supply chains, so on and so forth. And I think that in our particular situation, the tone was right at that time. So I think you kind of have to look at the overall picture.
Great. Did anyone else want to kind of add to that? I mean, it was very succinct, what Carl said. I would say I've been thinking about this a lot, and especially in relation to that sort of every ad is the same video piece, which if you haven't seen it is pretty amazing, slightly devastating. Music is language. It is, just as words are, a way to express emotion and tension, and get your message across. And so when everybody is faced with the same situation, you will have a lot of similar intentions and people trying to express the same thoughts. And I think that's a lot of what we're seeing. And I think you can maybe trace what's going on to the greater feeling out there too, when you have things that are more uplifting happening. And I hope that follows suit in the reality of the situation. Now, I did have some questions here that were submitted before the panel started. Patricia, do you want me to ask these to the panelists, or were you going to do it? I just wanted to.
Up to you. I could do it if you want. We can. There was a couple of questions that came in prior. Some came in the
feed. Let me see here. Sorry, I've got it in front of me here, and I just want to make sure we can keep moving on here. Let's see here. I like this a lot. It might be partially for the people who are managing rights on this panel, but also for the music supervisors. And it's a question from Andrea Maya. What is the best thing for aspiring and emerging songwriters to be doing right now? And I'm assuming that is maybe in terms of working and licensing, because obviously just keep going and being creative would be the first line. But what would you guys think, Kays and Jessica?
Yeah, I mean, Kays, this might be a better one for you to answer, but yeah, I think keeping busy and creating right now is the short answer. I don't know, Kays, you might have a better finger on this one.
Yeah, I mean,
independent artists.
I agree. I mean, we work with a lot of composers and independent artists at Score, and a lot of them are just like hunkering down and working right now. And it's kind of, I don't want to say a good opportunity, but kind of a good opportunity for everyone to just kind of be able to enter that zone and focus on their art right now. And I think that that's actually kind of one of the positives of all of this personally, in terms of like recommendations like of what she should be doing. I think personally, just like kind of stick true to yourself as an artist and what you naturally create. I think that tends to be people's strongest points, other than trying to create something that doesn't come naturally to them. So just, you know, your strongest stuff, just go with that. And in terms of like finding homes for it in the licensing, from a licensing standpoint, I always recommend just like finding a third-party licensor to rep your stuff versus trying to like pitch it yourself straight to music supervisors, because the third-party companies like Score and lots of others out there kind of have these trusted relationships with everybody, and we're constantly pitching music, you know, dozens of times per day to all you guys. So I definitely recommend trying to find like a trusted third-party licensor to work with, rather than trying to pitch your stuff directly to people.
Great.
Yeah. I'll also add one other thing, is something that we've noticed is a lot of our artists who are stuck at home have reached out and offered to us, like, you know, if you want us to create an acoustic version of one of our popular songs, or if you have songs like cover opportunities, you know, we're sitting at home with our studio set up and we're willing to do it. So, you know, being creative in that way. And it's always good, you know, we always recommend to our writers or our artists to do covers of songs that, you know, are popular and have a positive message that people might be interested in the licensing world. It's great to put yourself out there in that way.
Great. Patricia, do you want to take over on the questions? I've got a list here, but I think some of them are from during the panel. I know that you were going to.
Yeah, well, there's one that was interesting, and this maybe goes outside of, let's say, you know, how things have been dictated in the brand world by COVID. It's regarding trends. Maybe this is more of a question for Ben and Carl, but, you know, since trends dictate decisions and brand initiatives for messaging, you know, outside of the obvious COVID concerns or reactions, are there any other campaigns that have been consistent with other trends right now that we're noticing or finding interesting that's being picked up on the brand side?
I think COVID is pretty central now for every reason under the sun, and so I'm not seeing anything. You know, a lot of the work reflects that. However, I think, seen a lot of different work today. And so with that, there's, as always, a lot of music to go around, which is really exciting. I see it every day at Anomaly. I oversee every, you know, piece of work that goes out there, and similar to Carl at, you know, Ogilvy, there's a lot of opportunity. I think there is a lot of similar work that has been created surrounding COVID, but I think there's a lot of new work that's coming, and I think now people are constantly trying to break out of the mold, like, you know, they always have been in advertising, in order to stand out and be successful. And so you know, I think, going to sort of what Kay said, I think, like, I hear this a lot, you know, from people pitching, or even from artists and writers, composers, but I think do what you do, and if you do it well and you're passionate about it, there's going to be a place for it.
There's another question that came from Tamara Bubble, who was asking if, as the brands distinguish themselves musically at a time where everyone's pretty much, bringing out the same message of hope and community, we're at the same time being alone and together. Are we going to start to see some changes in the way they distinguish themselves?
I'll chime in there. As Ben said, it's our job as advertisers to distinguish ourselves from and do breakout work, get people's attention. That's our job. I don't think that anybody's in a position to know what tomorrow will bring, even on our day-to-day lives, let alone, honestly, what's going to happen around the bend for us in advertising. Now, this is not to sound like a doomsdayer, but we're busy. We're busy with this. I could say that today is one of the busiest days I've had in weeks, and it will continue to be that way. What's around the bend is, I think that there will be hesitant other clients who have stopped advertising because there's not an appropriate place to be able to advertise their products will start to feel more confident, and that will bring us back to normal. But for now, it's safe to say that COVID-19 and how we, week to week, month to month, is going to be how we kind of couch all our work. And, as time will tell. Time will tell.
There's another good question that came in about, are soups finding it easier to sit through their music submissions right now? Are we finding that we prefer receiving via agencies, and are we okay to receive direct from artists and maybe stop getting all the produced tracks? But one thing also that is interesting is, are we listening to music differently as a result of COVID?
It's kind of a big two-part question there. I think that certainly we're all looking, it's easier to sort through because when something's not the right tone, lyrics that are going to be just wrong. I sent the song Born to Be Alive for a music search for a COVID piece, and that went swiftly over here, because it just was not not the right message. And I think that is, you are listening to music differently. You're listening to lyrics more closely, trying to figure it out.
Yeah, I can make it a visual analogy. A lot of what my friends in the the creative side, and when they're picking, even making user generated content visually or finding stock images, is that they can't show people together, in public. They have to be wearing a mask. They have to be wearing gloves. Now, inside the home or solo, we're all good. But you can use that analogy when it comes to listening to music. I'm just kind of fortifying what Todd's saying, is that it becomes pretty apparent when something's not right. So our focus is still very narrow, how we listen for a specific project. Now, personally, I'm having more time to listen, so, and I listen differently, sometimes appreciating it more just because of the circumstances.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Are we on the time? Mchugh, do we need to?
Yeah, we got time for a couple more.
Couple more questions. Todd, did you have one in the pocket, or you want me to keep going through some of the streams?
Keep going. Yeah.
Joel, ask questions. It's not my panel, but I get the bully pulpit. I can ask questions. Okay. So this is something that I've been thinking about a lot, and I'm wondering how you guys sense this, that, music supervisors who are still working on things like ads, because they're always going to need that stuff. Do you find that you feel like different kind of connections with music makers, and the fact that, you know, what we're doing, we're able to kind of creatively choose sometimes, or at least direct where our licensing money is going. Do you guys feel any kind of greater weight towards using your licensing abilities for a purpose to help out musicians? Is that something that crosses your mind as you do this?
Absolutely.
Can I jump in?
Yeah.
Todd?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's Bob.
Hey, Bob.
Yeah.
How are you?
Just a comment to Joel's. We've been working with a lot of nonprofits and helping them at this time. People trying to express thanks, not necessarily developing a brand, although certainly that's going on, but there's so many of the nonprofits aspect of things that need help. And we've been using music in that regard to help the composers as well. You know, the American Ballet in New York is raising monies to help their people who are out of work right now. So I think there's a different side of it too, in terms of helping out the nonprofits during this real insecure time of nervousness that everybody's got.
Yeah.
And it's one thing to be at home, it's another thing to be unemployed. So.
Yeah, I felt a lot of weight in that, because while there's a lot of musicians who suddenly can't tour and to make a living, and it's the majority of how they make a living, this is one avenue that's still open to them. And I feel like there's been, you know, I think there's a lot of ability to do good doing our job. But that's me.
Yeah, now more than ever, for sure. We'll move on to the next question, Patricia.
So how are media spends affected with what's going on with COVID, considering we don't know how long we'll be in lockdown? Are online commercials increasing, and has media spend stayed the same across all media?
So this is specifically for probably the agency people, and what it's regarding is the amount of money brands are actually spending to put out their messages. Carl and Ben, you might be, and Jessica might be, and Kays might be the first people to answer this. So,
I'll just defer to the agency folk first.
Okay,
have any insights?
We're making work, and so the buys are there. Our clients, some of our clients have basically stopped advertising, or they put it on a major pause.
Right.
A lot of our license, for instance, some of our licenses have been on pause and renegotiated. Jessica, you can talk to this.
Yeah.
So that means that, like, say, for instance, we had licensed something in January for a year. A spot ran for 3 months. Whoops, it's not going to run anymore. Can we go back to the rights holder, because we're not going to be spending anymore on media, or we're going to really rethink what this commercial means and maybe change footage, but we're going to slow down. So then we're asking rights holders to, you know, to shift or swap out material and keep the same agreement, but with the content different, because we're not going to air that other spot ever again, if I'm making sense. So I can't, you know, I can't speak as the media buyer at the agency, but our clients are taking pause. So yes, there's less, there's less going on in broadcast. Certainly the internet, the buys there are more reasonable, and social media is its own thing. But when it comes to television, it's definitely changed.
I will say too, to add to that from our perspective, we did have a lot of spots lined up, confirmed to go live around March Madness and the Masters and NBA Finals and all these big tentpole events, and especially sports events that obviously aren't happening. So that had a big effect on brands' ability to you know, get the media they wanted, because that media is no longer there. And also, of course, a lot of this creative was really specific to those events. And those are just, you know, being put on hold or will never see the light of day, which is a shame, because some of the spots were awesome, and we're sad to not get to put them out there.
Yeah, you have all these sort of tentpole events and reasons for generating content, mainly in the broadcast side, but throughout, that have just disappeared because of this.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of that on our end as well. And I think that generally, I mean, we are staying busy and people are still producing a lot, and you know, we're still pretty busy, which is great. But one thing I have noticed a lot is a lot of renewals.
Mm-hmm.
Where brands are kind of like, instead of making something new, they're just renewing something and keeping it going. So we've seen a lot of that, or refreshing it somehow, but renewing the music. So.
Yeah. Ditto to that.
I mean, I would side with everyone else and what Carl said. You know, Anomaly is a creative agency, not a media buying company. So I can't speak to the actual buys, but you know, it kind of goes in line with everything else that we've talked about today, with just the work changing to reflect the current state of the industry and just the current state of the world. You know, and I'm working on something right now, actually, with K's. And so it's really fast moving work, but you know, it's like fast in a way that I've never seen before, but we're figuring out ways to put out new content for one of the accounts that I work on at Anomaly. And it's in a style that they've never done before. And it's a mini series. And I think it's really creative, and it speaks to, you know, everyone being at home and digesting more content than ever. But you know, like I said, it's a different lay of the land. It's a different pace, but yeah, we're getting through it. We're having fun doing it, I think, too.
Definitely.
Yeah. It is humbling when you think of things like the Olympics, you know, or of course baseball or all these other sporting events, which they just generate so much content and media buy and spend, and without those, we'll have something. I'm not sure what.
And all is not lost. I mean, I'm working on 2 projects that are not COVID related at all, and you know, they have a long range, a long runway, and clients are, you know, going to spend money and get back at it.
Yeah.
But right now, things are certainly tentative.
Maybe one last question is, you know, for all the solutions that are coming out of, you know, adapting to the environment you have to work within for COVID, like, for example, you know, we're bringing in drones to be the new cinematographer. What kinds of things do you think will stick? What things, like, you know, far more digital, you know, activity, lower fees, generated?
Well, let's hope that this couple things don't stick. The fast pace, because we're all going to fall over.
Brutal.
Yeah.
Reduce budgets because it's only going to air for hopefully 3 or 4 months, so we don't have the money, but you have to work just as hard. So fees are kind of, you know, you're working harder for less, honestly. And I think that user-generated content, you know, if it starts to get elevated to a place where, you know, it is fun to look at and becomes a genre, I think we'll probably see more of that as well. I mean,
sure.
Your Facebook ad is fantastic. You know,
thank you.
It really is, and you know that
they have a great team.
Yeah, very good.
I would say, you know, just I have a little purview into production as well as music supervision, and they're taking steps. They're developing protocols on how to shoot things and how crews can work together without minimum exposure. It is happening. You know, the studio system is going to reopen slowly, and it's going to be very different, but they're figuring it out. As we all are. So. Cool. Was that the last question? Are we heading for a wrap here?
You know, there's some stuff that's getting repeated that I figure maybe it's just worth a little shout out to the students. There's some students on board here.
Oh yeah.
And I want to thank at least, you know, I invited all the NYU Clive Davis Institute students. So for those of you who've shown up and have been asking questions like, you know, how to break into the business, what you could do as a young songwriter. I think in general, we're echoing the same sentiment that, you know, you're being conscious of attending these type of events where you can, you know, get some good information and, you know, take notes, research the names of the people who are speaking, get to know what work they do. If you have something that is, you know, similar and you want to get into contact with them, you can, you know, reach out to the Guild. We can maybe assist in introductions, or, you know, social media these days make it very easy to start to become a little bit closer to close that gap in asking someone a direct question.
Yeah, I echo that. This is a tremendous resource, and one that I wish I had. You know, I think most of the people on this panel, we made this up as we went along, you know, from a love of music and turning it into a career and being able to hear the stories. I mean, it really, I learn something every time we all talk. So it's great. I hope that the students and the people who are interested in getting into music supervision, the composers and rights holders, are getting as much out of this as I am, because it's really amazing to be able to bring all these people together and talk. So.
So I just want to say, though, thank you so much for everybody. But to that point, anybody who is not a member of the Guild of Music Supervisors can go on our website and check out, because we have different levels and different platforms, from Friends of the Guild to associate members to different levels. And so that kind of applies to everybody if you're interested. So just maybe go on, check out our site, and see if it's right for you.
Yeah, and also these will be rebroadcast, or they'll be up on our site and the Mondo site, these panels. And, you know, we had a great month of, you know, 500-600 people watching every week. Today we had over 400 on Zoom and many more on YouTube. So as Ed said, Friend of the Guild is a good way to get knowledge, to be on our mailing list, to get invitations to things we do and these panels. Next week, we're going to be part of a panel with AIMP, which is Association of Music Publishers, Independent Publishers. And that'll be, concept of that one is a cover story. Join as music supervisors and publishers discuss the art of creating and syncing covers and well-known compositions, how do music publishers work with covers, what makes the covers compelling, and why do supervisors love them. And Elisa Coleman, who's the AIMP president, organized that one. I'll help out. And then panelists will include Christina Billich from Warner Chappell, Holly from Zinc Roundtable, Jonathan Hecht, who's an independent New York music supervisor on our committee, Andrea Von Forrester, a great TV supervisor, part of our guild, Gary Miller from Spirit Music, who's a great sync fella, and Vanessa George Perry, who's one of our board members, who's also a great trailer music supervisor. So that'll be same bat time, same bat channel, but that will be through AIMP. So look up their site, and we'll be posting it also. What else, Ed? Oh, we forgot to shout out Al Risi, right? We got to shout out Al Risi.
Yeah, my bad. Sorry, Al. Al's an important member of our committee from Groove Guild. Also helped curate this. I just personally was a tremendous webinar, people. It was seriously, Todd and all you panelists were fantastic. I learned a lot. I'm thinking of changing my elective to move into the ad side, okay? So again, thank you. And Patricia, again, thanks everybody for doing
Todd
that.
Porter, thank you so much for moderating. All you panelists, thank you so much for your time, and for everybody tuning in. Love you guys. Mondo, all the people at Mondo, all the people at GMS, thank you guys for all your hard work. Elliot and Jack, and on our side, Levi, Angela, Hunter, everybody, thank you guys for making it all happen, and we'll keep the good programming coming towards the summer. So,
yeah.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, guys. And tomorrow, all you members, tune in. E1 is bringing us a showcase for membership that we can have there. So get ready to raise a drink at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and answer some GMS trivia for gift cards to your local drinkery. And and get ready to watch some great music. Maria Lante from E1 is on here, and so I wanted to shout out to her and thanks for helping us put this on, and a lot more stuff coming up. So thank you very much, and we'll see you guys next time.
Bye, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Bye, y'all.